All right. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I hope everything is good to go. Let me just get situated here. I'm going to take the next 2 minutes to just kind of let the viewers and you guys come on in, and I'm going to just make sure everything's working properly. So just go grab some hot tea. Hi, everyone. I hope you can. So, where did it go? Okay, so let's just get situated real quick. All right. So if you are watching from the YouTube page, as in on my YouTube channel, go to the link that is, I'm going to put that in the description box right now real quick. Go to the link that's in the comments of that video. And so that way you can join on the event page, not the YouTube page. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, go to the link that I just posted in the comment section of that video and you'll be on the event page. So then you can ask me questions live. And where is my video page? Okay, so this is a interactive soul talk workshop. That's what I call them. And there will be a question answer box or questions box, a place for you to ask me questions to the right of your screen. So go ahead and put any questions in there. And if someone is watching, can they just let me know that they can hear me okay? So that way I know the sound is good if I need to do anything different. So just go ahead and pop that in for me and real quick and let me know if you can hear me okay, you can see me okay, all of that. Can someone just quickly just tell me that real quick? I'm happy you're here too, Essence. So excited. So I think everything's good. So let's dive right in. So today I want to talk to you about vulnerability. And first, I want to start off by apologizing, canceling the last two Soul Talk workshops. Things came up, technical errors, difficulties, life happened, and I just needed to just step back, reassess, reevaluate, and proceed. So I'm so glad you could make it today to today's Soul Talk workshop on vulnerability. So let's dive in. And I have titled this workshop, How to Let Vulnerability Expand You to Show Up Authentically. And I get a lot of questions all the time asking about how I do what I do. How do I just make these videos on YouTube and talk about, some of the personal struggles that I've been through, and how do I just put myself out there? So before I actually dive in and give you some, real life coaching advice and coach you through this, I'm going to kind of give you like a backstory of how this all started. So in 2012, I was working in corporate America in Chicago, and I hated my job. I was miserable. I would come home from work and I would cry every day. And I thought this couldn't be it. Like, this is what I was supposed to be good at or love, because that's what I went to school for. That's what we're taught, right? Gotta go to school, get good grades, get a good paying job, and and do that for 40, 45 years until you retire. But I had that, and I was miserable. So at that time, I was also doing a lot of soul searching because of how miserable I am. And I always tell people that your suffering is a catalyst, or is opportunity to transcend into higher dimensions, into higher levels, into higher ways of knowing yourself. So suffering has a purpose. So if you're suffering right now, or you've experienced suffering in your past and you're still experiencing suffering, know that it has a purpose. If you're willing to see the blessing in whatever you're going through, it's going to really help you understand that there's a bigger purpose. There's something that I'm not looking at that I need to, that will help me transcend this. So that's exactly what I did. And I picked up a lot of books. I was reading constantly. I was, doing everything I needed to do to take care of myself. And that's where I got really, really excited about personal growth, personal development, spiritual growth. I like to look at the world from the inside out, not from the inside in. And spiritual work is all about understanding your internal condition, because your internal condition reflects your external experiences. And so I just was reading and researching and doing everything in my power to educate myself, because knowledge is power. And when you critically think for yourself, you can understand that there's ways of knowing and living in this world that I wasn't taught. And that's what spirituality did to me. It helped me to open up my mind, to help me understand that there are ways, and there's ways of living in the world that I didn't know existed, which is, through spiritual sight, living with spiritual sight and spiritual knowledge and spiritual groundedness as a spiritual being. So at that time, that's what I did. And one of the thoughts that kept coming up to me in my meditation, and I have been a long time lover of social media. Like, I love social media. And this is exactly why I was born in the time period that I'm born in. So I can use social media as a way to share my message. If you want to see, I have a friend who I love dearly, who's really good with social media, and I was thinking of doing an interview with him. So if you want to know how to use social media to share your message, thumbs up, tell me in the comments right now, and I'll get on that. So that will be out for you, soon. So back to what I was saying, I started understanding that I really spent a lot of time on social media, and most of the times I would do mindless stuff, like just scroll through Facebook or Twitter or my Instagram, and I wasn't really doing it with a purpose. It was just a way to blur or numb out something that was happening in my life. And so when I decided that I wanted to use social media as a way for me to, first of all, overcome my fear of social phobia and really start understanding how what I was learning was changing me and was helping me, I decided to use social media as a way to document things. And I've been someone who's loves to document things. I have a box of old journals and photographs and all the things I've collected as a kid. So that was just a natural part of me to continue to document things in my life. And social media became that catalyst. So that's where the thought to start a YouTube channel came. And it was terrifying at first, because the type of content I'm going to be creating was not what was normally found on YouTube. People more so go to YouTube for fashion, for beauty tips, for entertainment, for comedy, things like that. There are not many vloggers or bloggers out there who talk about personal development, who talk about spirituality and consciousness from a younger person's perspective. I'm in my 20s. Most people who talk about spirituality or personal growth are people, later in their life, 40s or 50s. And I thought, I have a niche right there automatically. And so I began to document my journey, what I was learning through these videos that I started back in 2013. And now it's 2016. So it'll be almost 3 years come this August. And when I started doing that is when all this vulnerability, all this fear of being afraid of being seen and heard to show up authentically. Because first of all, my initial thought was, who the hell is going to want to hear what I have to say? And my second thought was, am I good at this? Can I actually do this? I put this insane amount of pressure on myself to be good at this and see if I could do this. And I knew I wasn't going to go anywhere if I kept doing it like that. But I think what really changed for me is that I also started doing Kundalini yoga classes at that time. And I went to a Kundalini yoga class, and my teacher told me something that Yogi Bhajan says. He says that you teach what you need to learn. And that was whoa, light bulb moment. And it really helped me to grasp this idea that I can use my videos, my content that I create for the world as the medium through which I teach myself what I need to learn. And when I started approaching it like that, I got so excited about it, because now here I was making these videos or creating this content, writing this blog post as a way for me to teach what I needed to learn. And still to this day, I go back and I watch my own videos because I learn something from watching my own videos, believe it or not, because my videos are not structured. I don't have an outline. I just literally sit down, tap in for a moment by closing my eyes, and I talk about the topics I'm talking about in that specific video. And that's exactly how I'm doing this call right now, because I mean, I have a small little outline right now, but I don't do good with outlines. It kind of messes me up, and then I can't drop into my heart energy. So that's what I started doing. I just knew that if I wanted to, quote unquote, make an impact in the world, if I wanted to be of high service to people, I had to show up authentically. And that means I had to become vulnerable, right? So for some, well, let me just make sure. So before I began this talk, I actually Googled what vulnerability means. And vulnerability, I wrote it down, is defined by someone who is easily hurt or attacked. That's what vulnerability means, someone who's easily hurt or attacked. Now, that automatically feels like a victim. To be vulnerable, you know, I would feel like a victim. If you go around your whole entire life thinking that you're easily hurt or you're easily attacked, then you're playing victim, right? You're not an empowered human. You're not being an empowered creator of your life. And I think that is just, when we know that's the real definition of vulnerability, like the Latin meaning of vulnerability, or the word vulnerable, is to wound, right? But the thing is, though, when you can be, quote unquote, easily hurt or attacked, that means that you're not in your power. Because if you were fully grounded in your power, you wouldn't care who says what about you. And I'm going to get a little deeper into this. So most of the times we're so afraid to be vulnerable is because we're so defined what, let me just start again. I just totally ate my own words right there. The reason we're so afraid to be vulnerable is because we're so defined by what people will think, okay? When we're defined by what people will think, that means we are easily hurt and attacked, because we look at other people's opinions, other people's thoughts, other people's judgments, other people's comments, remarks, opinions about us as a hateful or attackful comment. And that's when the defenses come up and says, you suck because you're not nice to me and that's not who I am. You don't know who the real me is, etc. Right? That's what we perceive vulnerable to be. And now it's like understanding that if I am greatly defined or affected by what people think of me, then of course I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be vulnerable to do anything, because we live in a world where we have to have human interaction. We have to communicate with other humans. It's just part of the experience. We can't just hide in our house and not talk to anybody. We're social creatures. We're social beings. We love to interact and engage with other people. So everybody's vulnerable. We're always vulnerable, because we'll be at a coffee shop and we won't know how the cashier is gonna, treat us. We're always vulnerable. But what it is that we have set boundaries for ourselves, that we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, because we can predict the reactions, we can predict the behaviors, we can predict how someone will behave. Then we're okay with being vulnerable in that set criteria, because we know what the reaction, what the response will be. Now, if we choose to be vulnerable, as in we want to show up authentically, and showing up authentically is a day-by-day choice, okay? It's this kind of, I like to think of it as kind of a decision you make. To show up authentically is to decide who's going to lead. Is love going to lead, or is fear going to lead? You know you're showing up authentically because you feel vulnerable. And the reason you feel vulnerable is because we live in a world where being your real self is quote unquote hard, which is so weird and so absurd. But we live in a world where being your real self is hard, right? It's because we all have this facade that we put up. We all have this, like, you know, the outside world we face, the face we put up, and then there's the inside. In my bedroom, this is my face. And so every single day we put our 10 pounds of makeup and do our hair all pretty and cute, or put our cutest clothes on because somehow we need to mimic, you know, a celebrity or something. But that's not being authentic. You know, you need to sit back and you need to ask yourself, how would the real me dress? How would I do my hair? Would I wear makeup? Would I not wear makeup? Would I dress like this? Would I not dress like this? So that's being authentic. So every single day you have a choice of if you're going to be authentic or not. And it starts beginning by the way you dress your body, or by the way you part your hair that day, or the way you do your makeup that day if you're a woman, or, you know, if you're a man, the way you're going to, I don't know, express your masculinity. It doesn't have to be the same way that everyone else is expressing their masculinity. So first of all, the first step is, if you're uncomfortable being authentic, then you're more likely to feel vulnerable a lot. You're going to feel like you're walking on eggshells all the time, and then that you constantly have to be pleasing other people. You constantly have to live your life based on someone's expectation of you. There is going to be no space that you've given yourself to be real, honest, authentic, and vulnerable with yourself. Oh, let me just take a sip of tea. Right? So if you're liking what I'm saying so far, go ahead and pop in some little comments to me right there and just let me know. Give me a thumbs up or give me a yay or whatever you want to say. I love to hear from you. So the second part I want to kind of talk about is the fact that, like, for me, like, by my own personal experience, I have learned that the more vulnerable I am, the bigger the impact I can make. Okay, so if you're someone who's on this call, you're probably someone who knows that they're playing small and they want to show up in a bigger way in their life. They want to play big. They want to stop being defined by their limitations. They want to stop being defined by the opinions or the definitions of other people, what someone will think of them if they do X, Y, Z, right? We feel vulnerable when we have to show up for ourselves. As in, we have to fully embrace the shit, this ugly, the good, the bad, the ugly, the shitness of our life, everything, when we choose to show up in an authentic and real way. And my experience with being authentic comes from this story. I'm going to tell you this story real quick. In college, in my freshman year, I had a group of friends, and there was this girl who I had become friends with, and we were friends, and we would hang out with a bunch of other girls in our, in our dorm room. And towards the end of the year, I started venturing out and making other friends, because why not? You can be friends with anyone, Some of you on this call may be my future friends, who knows? And so I started making other friends, and I was hanging out with them in their dorm room, and this girl came to me, and she had this long list of written down of the things she wanted to tell me. And I was like, okay. She's like, I need to tell you something. And she's like, okay. So she did in front of 15 people in that room. And she basically listed out every single thing she didn't like about me, every single thing that she thought was wrong with me, and everything that quote unquote I did to hurt her or upset her. And she called me self-centered and rude and full of myself, and just really mean things in front of 15 people. Okay, 15, 18, 19-year-olds that day. And I literally was sitting there and I was bawling my eyes out, because I was like, I don't perceive myself like that. I don't think I'm self-centered and selfish and need to be the center of attention and need the limelight, because I'm this really shy, reserved girl. I'm super shy. I couldn't even hold a conversation with someone. How the heck did she get that idea about me? So here I was, my whole entire identity had been attacked, and I was so upset. But you know what I did? I went to her later that night and I told her, thank you for telling me all of this, because now I know what I need to work on. That was vulnerable for me to go say that to her. But that was me. At that time, I didn't realize that what I had done until now, when I tell you this, is that I had chosen to be authentic. Because if I had chosen to come from a place of ego, come from a place of hate, come from a place of fear, I would have totally just ignored her or lashed out against her or said something, just reciprocated her behavior towards me. But something higher, something more bigger than me kind of came over and just said, go thank her. Just thank her, because now you have the awareness of all the things you need to work on. And that totally helped me to understand that when I am authentic, people aren't going to like me because they're going to feel threatened by me. Because when you're not, when you're someone who's so real and honest with people, you're considered like someone who, you know, they can't hang out with or they can't talk to, because you just tell it like it is. But the thing is, though, when you stand in your power and you remain authentic and you decide and choose from a place of authenticity of how you want to lead and live your life and who you allow into your space and who you allow to make friendships with, you realize that everyone who's not at that vibration just falls off, and you attract and create this new reality for yourself where everyone is a reflection of that vibration. And in my life now, I never attract people. I never attract negative, mean, rude, disrespectful people, ever. And I'll tell you a story. Earlier today, I was getting gas for my car, and I was backing the car up, and I hit another car, like right behind me. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. And like, I just got this like sudden shock. And I got out of the car, and it was this older man in his probably 80s. And I was like, I really hope I didn't damage his car, because it's not even my car, it's my mom's car to begin with. And he looks at me and he's like, looks like there isn't any problem, just a few scratches, but whatever, you know, we'll be okay with it. He looks a little closer, and there's like a little couple of pieces that have broken off from his front bumper, just really irrelevant and things that wouldn't be noticed. But then he told me that I actually need to get your information. I was like, okay, like, let me go look for it. So I went and I looked for it in my glove compartment in my mom's car, and I couldn't find it. And then he comes up to me, he's like, you know what, actually, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. It's nothing can be done anyway. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, okay, yeah, well, yeah, that's perfectly fine. So that's what happened. He said, forget about it. Let's just not worry about it. And I left and I came home. And I use that example to help you understand that the more authentic you are, as in the more you choose and lead with love, you start to realize that you create this reality for yourself that everyone in your life becomes that reflection of the love and the authenticity you live in. So those quote unquote worst case scenarios or terrible scenarios that happen, like me hitting someone's car, when they do happen, it becomes this example or this testimony or this way of knowing how you lead or live your life, because your life is a reflection of your beliefs. And if you believe you live in a loving world surrounded by loving people, those will be your interactions. That's how you raise your vibration, to start being authentic. And you know you're being authentic because it makes you, it's let me rephrase that a second. You know you're being authentic because it's coming from a place of love. That's how you know you're being authentic. If it's coming from fear or revenge or hurt or desperation or depression or any of those low vibe emotions like shame, guilt, it's not authentic. That's you just leading from a low vibe place. You know you're authentic because you're coming from a place of love. And so how can you infuse authenticity to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to allow vulnerability to expand you to show up authentically? And the number one tip I have is, when you understand that being vulnerable is an opportunity to grow, right? When we're in the safety and the comfort of our environment and we know what we're doing and what we have to do and what's going on, there is no room to be vulnerable. It's like we're robots. We're operating at this, boom, 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 boom. There's no opportunity to be vulnerable. But when you're choosing to grow and you're choosing to expand, you're choosing to challenge your limitations, you're choosing to face your fears or embrace your fears or understand why I am struggling in my life, that's going to require some vulnerability, because now you're going to have to start doing things differently than you normally would have, right? So that is if you can look at vulnerability as an opportunity to grow, because in life you're either growing or dying. You might as well grow, because what is dying is not really alive, it's just existing. So you might as well grow. So always look at vulnerability as an opportunity to grow into the fullness of who you are. I hope you're enjoying this so far. If you have any questions you want to ask me as I go through and I talk to you, put them in the right, to the right of the box. There's a question box for you. Stick them right in there. And towards the end of the call, I will start taking some questions and answering your questions live. So put them to the right of that question box right there. And so coming back to vulnerability, vulnerability is also choosing to not be limited by your fears. If you see me looking down, because I'm reading some of my notes right here, it's choosing to not be limited by your fears, your insecurities, your limiting thoughts, right? So, for example, let's say you have this grand idea that you want to open up a, you want to write a cookbook. Let's say that is something that you're passionate about and you really, really want to do it, and you want to write, oops, you want to write a cookbook. Okay, so the immediate first thing that comes to your mind is like, oh my God, who am I to write a cookbook? I can't write a cookbook. I don't even cook. Like, I'm not even a chef. There's all these excuses come into your mind as to why you can't write a cookbook, right? So now what you're doing is you're choosing to be limited by your thoughts. You're choosing to be limited by your thoughts. The things that you're sitting here imagining right now aren't even real. They're not even there. You're just going in the spiral right now of something that's not even real. You're choosing to be limited by your thoughts and your insecurities and your fears. But if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you allow yourself to crack open, okay, you realize that I can use this dream of mine to write a cookbook as an opportunity for me to grow and to expand into my potential and to basically transcend my limits, my fears, my insecurities. I can either choose to be ruled by them and defined by them, or I can choose to create a new definition, a new reality where I am defined by empowering, supporting, loving thoughts, where I pursue what I love to do because it expands me, it grows me, but most of all, it allows me to know the fullness of who I am. If you can approach it like that, you're more likely to show up and do the inner work. Because when you don't do the inner work and you just start paving the, I like to say it's like chipping away at the pavement or going gung-ho with it, you run into struggle, you run into challenges, you run into obstacles. But when you can understand that there's something internally within me that needs to change first before anything on the external world will change, you start to realize that I have to begin that by facing my fears, by understanding why I feel insecure about this, understanding why I limit myself in this way. I always like to tell myself that by owning your vulnerability, you step into your potential. If you want to know what your potential is, you need to make yourself vulnerable. And what that essentially means is that you need to let go of being defined by what other people will think. The shame is hugely associated with vulnerability. Sometimes it's like we have these wounds and these stories, and we have our past, the past. We are so defined by what happened to us. He did this, she did this person did this didn't go right, boom, 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 poor me, poor me. Living in the past is living in victimhood. That's what living in the past is. We're so defined by our past that when we want to do something different, let's say that we've been a chartered accountant for 45 years, but for those whole entire 45 years, we've been miserable at it. And now all of a sudden you're like, I want to be a life coach. I want to do coaching. I want to help people have better relationships with themselves. Now you're stepping into the territory of vulnerability, because all of a sudden you're deciding to show up authentically for all of a sudden, because living your life as a chartered accountant didn't feel authentic, because if it felt authentic, you wouldn't be so miserable at it, right? So all of a sudden you have this renewed thought or renewed belief that you can help people have better relationships with themselves, and you want to be a coach. You want to help people do that. But all of a sudden, all your fears, insecurities, limiting thoughts happen. Now you can choose to be defined by that, but choose to be defined by what people will think. All of a sudden in my career change from a chartered accountant to a life coach, oh my God, it's going to be so weird. People are going to ridicule me. People are going to make fun of me. People are going to get, whatever. The stories we tell ourselves. Or you can go above that. And when you go above that is by choosing to be vulnerable, is choosing to not be defined by what someone will think, is choosing freedom. Freedom from the thoughts, the opinions, the remarks, the responses of other people is choosing to be vulnerable. And then all of a sudden, you realize that you're showing up, you're expanding into show up authentically for yourself, because you're choosing to have freedom from being defined by other people. Essentially, that's what vulnerability is true. Vulnerability, when you are so vulnerable, when you feel vulnerable all the time, is that you're choosing to be defined by other people, other people's perception, other people's reality of you. But when you become full of the reality with the experience of yourself, you're not going to be vulnerable. And that's what changed for me. That's why I believe and always tell myself, is what I'm doing authentic, is expanding me? If it is, share it, post it, do it, whatever you need to do. But if it's not expanding me and coming from a place of love, authenticity is love, then I don't need to do it. I don't need to do it. I hope that makes sense. Let's see what else I have. I don't know if I said this, but being vulnerability is making a choice to step beyond the boundaries you have set for yourself, okay? No one can make you feel any which way until you give them the permission to. So if you have any questions for me, put them in the right-hand Q&A box right there, and I will get into it. I want to talk about insecurity for a second. I feel like insecurity is like a friend of vulnerability. Some of us have a lot of insecurities, and the insecurities that we have is we're so afraid to let to be our real self with people, because we're afraid of what they'll think if we are really ourselves. I find that when you can't be real with people, why are you entertaining those people in your life? If you have a hard time being real with someone, whereas like if you go to that person and you show them the good, the bad, the ugly of you, and you really authentically show your anger, your frustration, and they can't handle it, why are you keeping that person in your life? You don't need that. You don't need that. You need to be around people who can accept you for who you are. And not everyone has good days. I don't have good days for sure. And not everyone is going to not have bad days. We all have bad days, right? So if someone can't accept your good and your bad days, why are you keeping them around in your life? Who are you trying to please? It's like attachment you have to gain approval for their love, and you use that as a way to not be honest and not be real to yourself, and to give yourself what you need. So our insecurities stem because we believe that if we aren't XYZ way, someone isn't going to love us, someone isn't going to approve of us, someone isn't going to want to be our friend, be our whatever. But you have to give yourself that permission that if I can't be real with this person, why am I invested in having this relationship with them? Because what's important to me is having an authentic, real, honest relationship important to me, or a relationship where I have to hide my true feelings. It's whatever you put up with is what you end up with. Whatever you put up with is what you end up with. Okay? If you can't be who you are, especially in romantic relationships, then you need to reevaluate why you're with that person. If that person doesn't accept you for who you are, why are you in that relationship? That is not a relationship built on love. That is a relationship built on conditional love. Okay? I hope that makes sense. And the relationships is a place that we're so vulnerable. We feel so vulnerable in all the time. Oh my gosh, I can't be real. Like, he can't see me without my makeup. He can't see me naked because I'm fat. He can't know that my hair is actually curly and not straight. He can't know these things. Why? Why? Why are you so afraid to show up as your real self? Because you're afraid to be real with yourself. When you can't be real with yourself, you're gonna always fear being real with others because you're too busy judging yourself for your curly hair, for your fat, for being not this way, and you reflect that judgment onto someone else. And what you do is the energy you give out is the energy you receive back. So you receive judgment back from other people. When you realize that being vulnerable is of the ego, and I talk a lot about ego is the false conditioned self. The ego is what thinks that it's flawed. It can't be real. It has to live in the limitations. It has to feel insecure and worried and create this crazy story in their head. That's all ego. Ego is afraid to be exposed. Ego is afraid to be seen, to be heard, to be real. Ego wants to always put up a facade, always wants to put up this I'm so happy face and be miserable on the inside and attack you on the inside. That's all ego. Spirit, your higher self, that is perfect, pure, positive energy. That is the fullness of who you are. And as you dive deeper into your own inner world and you start understanding the false conditioned self, the ego, you start understanding that it has a specific tone, has a specific way that's talking to you all the time. It's not very nice. It's always disrespectful. And when you start differentiating between those two, I guess I like to say those two animals that live inside of you, you'll start understanding that I'm so defined by my ego, this learned self-image that I have from other people's perspective of me, that I can't let go of it. And when you do the inner work and you tap into your inner world and you start understanding that you're first and foremost a spiritual being having a human experience, you want to find out who the real you is. And the real you is this fullness, this complete fullness of who you are. I love to use the word whole. You are this whole person, this whole being, this wholeness of the whole entire universe. It just is. When you start tapping into that by stilling your mind, by challenging your limitations, by questioning your thinking, by understanding why you think life is unfair or why you believe that you can never have a soulmate, when you start questioning, where did I learn all this from? Like, who told me all of this? You'll start to realize that none of this came from you. This all was feedback you received from someone, sometime, somewhere, somehow, in the past. In the fucking past. So many of us are living in the past, and that past is dictating what our future will create. When you're living in the past, you're not being vulnerable because you're too afraid to expand. You're too afraid to crack. When there are no cracks, how can the light shine through, or how can the light get in, right? So crack wide open. Okay. So if you have questions for me, put them in the Q&A box to the right of your screen, and I'm going to start answering some questions now. So go ahead and ask your questions now. Okay, so let's start with Emily asks, there are two main things in my life that are terrifying me right now. Changing my college major and coming out to my parents. How do I allow myself to be vulnerable with things that totally change my future for the worse? Okay. Ask yourself, first of all, I changed my college major when I was a sophomore in college, and I will kind of touch base on that a little bit. But begin by asking yourself, why you think it's going to change your future for the worse. Why do you think that? If you know by coming out to your parents and by changing your college major is you following what feels right, what feels true for you, what feels like that's what the real you wants, then why would it be for the worse? Why would choosing to be authentic, leading with love, that's what being authentic means. Authentic means choosing, living with love. If that's what authenticity is, living and leading with love, which it is, then why would it change your future for the worse? So kind of first go deeper into that question yourself at a later time. And about the terrifying about changing your college major. For me, I was a pre-med biology major in college. I took a few chemistry classes, got D's in them, and this was in college. And I was like, if I'm getting D's in chemistry in college, I have about 6 more years of school ahead of me. I don't think I'm cut out for this career. So, and my dad's biggest dream for me, if you are Southeast Asian, if you've been around people who are of Indian descent from India, you know that they're all lawyers, they're all doctors, or they're all engineers, okay? And so my dad's biggest dream for me was that I be a doctor, because I'm a child of immigrant parents, okay? My parents immigrated to this country, and they didn't receive the education that they wish they had. So education was very, very important to them, that we get good grades, go to good schools, become doctors, and etc. And so I had high expectations to be a doctor. My whole entire life, that's what I've always told my parents, I wanted to be a doctor. But I realized that the reason I told myself and other people and my parents that I wanted to be a doctor, because everyone around me was a doctor. Children learn by what's around them. You know, there was no room to be creative and do liberal arts and do writing and do speeches and speak on stages and, you know, nurture my creativity. There was no space for that. So I just was like, oh, being a doctor is so cool. Just sit up properly. Being a doctor is so cool. Like, everyone's a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor too, because I get to save lives. Because in my heart, at a very young age, I knew I was here to help people. And I thought being a doctor was the way I was going to help people. And I had to basically come to this crazy realization and basically decision and tell my mom and my dad that I didn't want to be a doctor. It was a huge ordeal. I was so scared. I was so nervous. I couldn't do it. Like, it was just so scary. So I remember when I was home for winter break my sophomore year in college, I had decided that that's what I was going to do it. And so I remember going downstairs in my house right now. I'm in my parents' house. I was downstairs, and this used to be my room, which is not my room anymore. It's my brother's room. So I was staying in this room when all this was happening to me. And I went downstairs to my parents in our eating kitchen area. And we were having this conversation with my dad, and I just told him, like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't like it. I'm not happy. I'm not getting good grades. And he looked at me and he said, you broke my dreams. And I said, exactly. They were your dreams. And that's it. Since that day, it has strained our relationship so much. And the way he started treating me, talking to me, interacting with me completely changed. And between then and now, I've put my dad through the ringer with so many other areas in my life that I've made crazy decisions beyond what he expected me to do with my life. But I will tell you this. I graduated college in 2011, so it is 5 years later almost. Excuse me, I think I have to sneeze. So I graduated college in 2011, 5 years later now. The relationship I have with my father is the best relationship I've ever had in my whole entire life with him. And the reason for all of that is because I chose to show up authentically. I chose to honor the real me. I chose to lead with love. I chose to be vulnerable. You know, when we are vulnerable, it's a call to our own expansion, but not only that, it's a call to the expansion of the people that we're in these relationships with, like mother-child, of any relationship. It's a call to any relationship you're in. And as first and foremost, you're here to evolve as a soul, to grow as a soul. So when I understood that by me making my own decisions and being vulnerable and telling my parents that I didn't want to be a doctor was going to help me expand my soul, which it did, because I found my calling, I found my purpose, I found the thing that lights a fire, and I'm just so excited and elated and fulfilled by doing the work that I do in the world now, that had I not been vulnerable and told them that I didn't want to be a doctor, I would have never known that I could become this, I could do this work in the world. So it may seem like things will get bad, but that's okay. But when you lead with love, everything is always okay in the end. Everything is always okay in the end. And just like that, having them come out to your parents, use that same analogy, that same perspective that you're going to do with your telling them you want to change your college major. Be like, I'm choosing to lead with love, and love never betrays. Things may get worse, quote unquote worse, and shit might hit the fan, but in the end, I promise you, everything will work out. And I'm living proof that it has worked out. Okay? Hope that helps you. Okay, so if you have any more questions, go put them to the right of your screen. I'm taking questions live right now. Here's a perfect opportunity for you to ask me questions. So I have another question by Topi. Hey Kajal, my boyfriend is going to study abroad for 7 months. I'm going to miss him a lot, but I think that this is a great opportunity for me to discover myself when I'm alone, to know who I really am and want to be. Do you have some tips for me? Yes, I do. Start by educating yourself, doing whatever you need to do to understand who you are. And if that means, going to ice hockey rink because you've always been curious about ice hockey, or if that means going to the library and checking out like 15 books on self-development, or if that means calling up your really good friend from high school that you haven't had a conversation in 2 years, do that. Whatever you would want to do, whatever you want to learn about, like if you've ever been curious about positive psychology or hypnotherapy or publishing, just start taking those curiosities you've had in your life and start engaging them. It's going to kind of give you a way for you to learn what are your likes, what are your dislikes, what you do, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. It's going to help you understand who you are. And as you go through that process, it's going to help you get clarity around how what makes you happy, but it's also going to help boost your confidence levels because you're going to put yourself out there, and that's vulnerable. To put yourself out there and go try all these new things and do all these new things, it's vulnerable. Start doing that. And another thing I would do is start meditation practice. I have so many videos on my channel on meditating. You can, if you go to my homepage on my YouTube, which is youtube.com/dearkajal, you'll see at the really bottom there's a meditation series. If you sign up for my newsletter, I will send you some worksheets that you can use to get started on your meditation practice. But meditation, I suggest, and start experimenting with the things that you've always been drawn to, and journaling. I also have a journaling ebook, so which if you sign up to get love letters from me, aka my newsletter, you'll get a journaling ebook, which is 50 prompts to start conversations with the soul. So begin there, get curious and follow your curiosities, but always remain open to any possibility. Hope that helps. Okay, another question. The same person. I've been insecure almost my whole life. I felt like my boyfriend kept me out of it. I'm scared that I will get insecure again. I want to be secure with myself and to love myself without any approval from others. Okay, I was insecure my whole life too, okay? And I realized the reason we are insecure is because our self-image, our self-identity is built on what other people think of us. That's what causes insecurity, because we're so busy valuing other people's opinion of us over our own opinion of ourselves. So when you start understanding who you are by doing the inner work, by quote unquote going on a self-discovery journey and understanding the reality of who you are, the reality of your truth, which is a spiritual being having a human experience, those insecurities will very quickly start drowning out and will not make sense, because you realize that feeling insecure isn't of service to you. Why walk around feeling like you're walking on eggshells all the time? That's what feeling insecure feels like, as if you're walking on eggshells 24/7, because you're so afraid of what someone else is going to think of you, what someone's going to say about you, what someone's going to blah, blah, blah. When you can let go of someone else's opinions or definitions or expectations of you, you can truly start to embody who you are. And that requires you to be vulnerable, willing to grow. And know that this is not going to be some overnight process. It's going to take some time, but it's going to take your commitment to understanding the true nature of who you are, which is love, which is a spiritual being having a human experience, which is wholeness, which is fullness, which is the divine in human form, however you want to look at it. I have videos on this on my website, so go Google it, go search for them on how to stop caring what other people think of you. I hope that helps. So if you have questions for me as you watch this live conversation with me, put them to the right of your screen. I'm going to take some questions more now. So go ahead and do that. I want to go ahead and recap what I talked about. Vulnerability is choosing to not be defined by what someone else will think of you. Okay? I have this beautiful thing written down. Let me just read straight from there. Vulnerability is daring to not be defined by any definition of you which is not authentic to who you are. That's what vulnerability is. Because when you stop yourself from being vulnerable, because let's say you have this great idea to open up a YouTube channel on personal growth and development, which you should, but you feel vulnerable in doing that. If you stop yourself from doing that, it's because you're choosing to be defined by something that is not authentic to who you are. And you know it's authentic to who you are because it feels expansive, it feels exciting, it feels loving, it feels empowering, it feels good. So when you stop yourself, you will never know what you're capable of, what your potential is, what you truly are here to do. You know, a lot of people are trying to find their life purpose and what's my purpose? What am I here doing on the planet? Well, are you choosing to be vulnerable? Because when you're vulnerable, it's going to lead you to your purpose, because now you've stopped defining yourself by these limitations and you're choosing to be authentic, because authenticity is going to cultivate more authenticity. Is going to allow you to show up in a bigger way for yourself, which is going to allow you to expand all the possibilities of what you could possibly do with your life. It's going to allow you to be more of service. And for me, the thing is that I get people telling me all the time that the reason they like watching me is because how real I am. But the thing I like to share with you is that the thing that we somehow have programmed into our head through society is that if you are real, people won't like you. So just be someone who you're not. That means people will love you. But how long? How long are you going to continue to put up a facade? It takes a lot of effort and work to be someone who you're not. Like literally, it's exhausting. And if the only person you can be is yourself, and it feels easy to be yourself, because being yourself is easy. In the reality, in the real sense, it is easy. Because you don't have to worry about the way your hair is and how many pounds of makeup you're wearing and if my shoes look okay with my outfit. Just like, this is who I am. I don't give a shit's ass what you think. If my 10 pounds of makeup isn't working for you, it's working for me, you know? That's, if you can own that, and you could truly be yourself, being yourself is easy. It will be so much more easier for you to connect with people. The reason we live in a culture that's afraid of connection is because nobody knows how to be themselves. We're all putting up this image of who we think we need to be. And if you want to have real, deep, authentic connections and conversations with people, you have to be vulnerable. You have to stop defining yourself based on what someone thinks of you and what someone expects you to be. Boom. So let me see what other question. Essence asks, what is the book you were giving away in a video? It's a spiritual book, but not A Course in Miracles. The book I believe you're talking about is A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. So if you are a newbie of A Course in Miracles, or you've heard me talk about A Course in Miracles in some of my videos, I kind of pull lines out from that book all the time. It is the book I live my life by. I love that book. I'm a teacher of A Course in Miracles. I love that book because just like the title says, a return to love, it is a return to love. It is helping you remember your true state as love. It's helping you to understand that You are not what you think you are. You are not this physical body having this physical experience. There is something beyond this, beyond your awareness, beyond your knowledge, because what you focus on is what you see. So if you're just focused on the reflection you see in this mirror, this 3D reflection of you, then that's all you'll see. But if you start expanding yourself and asking yourself the questions like, who am I? Why am I here? Who is God? Who is this great man in the sky that I'm supposed to be fearing? Who is this dude? You start understanding that there's deeper meaning and deeper purpose to my life, and that I'm really just amazing. I'm whole and perfect and divine and beautiful. There's nothing that I can do wrong. I'm always loved. You come to that place with yourself. Okay, that's kind of what that book talks about. It's beautiful. And you come to that place when you start taking your own self-development work seriously, when you start investing in your inner world, as in doing what you need to do to kind of get rid of the fog, this illusion of what you've defined yourself to be. You know, someone who needs to get good grades, get into a good school, needs to have a good job, needs to make a lot of money, needs to da-da-da-da. Who are you beyond all that? Who are you beyond all these identities that have been given to you? That is where vulnerability comes. That's where vulnerability allows you to go with that deeper expression, that deeper knowing of yourself. Okay. Oh, okay. I know what book you're talking about, Essence. It's called Spiritual Growth by Sonia Roman. I always have it with me. I don't have it with me right now. But yeah, that book is all about being your higher self. So remember earlier I talked about there's two voices in your head, the voice of the ego, the false conditioned self, and then the voice of spirit, the higher, the real you. It's all about understanding and shifting your awareness, living as the higher self. That's what that book talks about, Essence. Okay. So Brianna asks, so I'm 21 years old and still uncomfortable and nervous talking to older adults and leading the conversation with people in general. I know fear is a part of it. I just really struggle with this. Okay. So I used to have social phobia. To some extent I do. I just don't feel comfortable in large environments of people, like when there's a lot of people. I get very shy. I'm naturally a shy person to begin with, but I think over the years, as I have really taken my own personal growth seriously and have done my inner work, I really can just not care anymore, and I can usually have a conversation with anyone now. But if you feel uncomfortable and nervous to talk to older adults, there might be something you have picked up in your earlier years in your life, that some kind of fear of authoritative figures, looking at older adults as like authoritative figures in your life. And there might be some kind of fear around that. So kind of go deeper into what your relationship with your parents has been like, your grandparents, the authoritative figures when you were a child growing up. Look a little deeper into that. And you also said leading the conversation with people in general. So when you're afraid to kind of talk to people, it's also an insecurity. Most of the times when you're afraid to have conversations with people, you're too busy thinking about, am I sounding okay? Or am I making sense? Are they getting what I'm saying? You're not really actively listening to what the person is saying, or actively present in the now with that conversation you're having with that person. So there's some kind of fear coming up and some kind of insecurity coming up. And maybe because you think that to have this conversation with someone, it has to be done in a specific way, and I don't think I fit into that mold or that way to have that conversation. So kind of start tapping into understanding where your fear of authoritative figures is coming from, and why you feel self-conscious to have conversations with older people. Are you afraid that they're going to judge you? And if you're afraid that someone is judging you for the way you speak, or for how much knowledge you have, or however you lead or have a conversation, it's your own judgments being reflected back to you. So there might be some self-judgment involved there. I hope that helps you. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. So if you have questions for me, put into the right in the box to the right of your screen, and I will take some questions. So far, what have you gotten out of this? Share something that I said that helped you. Put that in the box as well. Okay. Oops. You froze. There I am. Okay, so if you have questions, put them to the right of the box. So going back to a little bit more about authentically showing up in a way that allows you to make connections with people, is that if you understand, ask yourself the question, who are the people you like to watch, people you like to engage with, people's content that you like to consume, be it a book, a video, an article, whatever. You realize that the reason you feel connected to that person is because of how real they are. You don't like the people who you can't relate to because they don't make themselves relatable, right? So ask yourself, if I admire that in someone else, then why can't I hold the space for someone else or give them the permission to do it for themselves? You know what I'm saying? It's like when you show up in a vulnerable way to expand authentically, you give someone else the permission to do the same. And that's what makes you inspiring. We're so inspired by people who are authentic, who are real, who share the nitty-gritty details of their life with us, and we're like, wow, you are so amazing, you've overcome so much. But if you feel so moved by their message or by what they're saying, it's because you find them to be relatable. And if you want to do that for yourself, you got to be real and relatable to someone else. You got to give someone else the permission to receive you in that way, because you're willing to go there with yourself. Hope that makes sense. Sometimes I don't make sense. Let me know if I don't make sense. Right? And some of the places that I have felt the most vulnerable is relationships, and who I love, because who I love isn't approved of. What I do is not approved of. My choices, because it's not approved of. My lifestyle, because it's not approved of. Okay, so basically everything about my life I'm doing wrong, because that's not what my parents have expected of me. So that makes me feel vulnerable. But if I sat there and continue to be defined by their expectations of me and not chosen to be vulnerable as a step outside the definitions of limitations, I would have never discovered who I really am and what I really love and what I'm here to do. Right? And I wouldn't have given me the courage to have this conversation with you right now, or be doing a live video, because I'd be too scared, because it's so much easier to make a pre-recorded video and put it out. It's so much harder to make a live video because you see all my mistakes and all my stuttering and all my words that I eat right now. I've come to understand that the more honest, the more real I am, the more impact I can make, the more of service I am to you, because that's how I relate. That's how I relate to you, and that's what makes me likable. That's what makes me, if I can like myself as a real me, then I know someone else will like me as a real me. Why not hundreds and thousands of people? Be of service to yourself by liking yourself, because when you like yourself, people will like you too. Okay, let's see. Question, how do you move forward being a light worker and your parents don't approve because it's different from their beliefs? Okay, great question, by the way. It's in the process that I went through myself. When someone's expectation of you feels limiting, like for example, my parents' expectation of me was to be a doctor, to marry an Indian boy, to live in a mansion, to drive a luxury car, to make a boatload of money. If that's our expectation of me, to be religious Hindu woman, when that is their expectation of me, and it makes me feel limited. It makes me feel like, oh God, I gotta be put in a box now. It makes me feel constrained. Why would I live that way? I wouldn't do it. So what happened with me is that I just knew that if I lived by other people's ideas for me, other people's realities for me, and if it didn't make me feel expansive, and it didn't make me feel light, if it didn't make me feel easy, if it didn't make me feel satisfied and fulfilled, it wasn't what I wanted for myself. And if what you want for yourself is different than what your parents want for you, yes, it becomes really hard. You butt heads all the time. But what you do is you remain adamant and committed to you being a light worker in the world, you being a healer, you being a coach, you being whatever it is that sets your soul on fire. You stay committed to that. And for me, what has happened is they've seen my commitment to my work, how hard I work. I'm a workaholic, and it's not a good thing, but I could be sitting at my computer for 10, 12 hours a day because I love what I do. I'm still learning how to not be consumed by what I do because I love it so much. I eat, breathe, live it. They've seen how hard I work and how committed I am to this. They don't understand it, and I don't think they genuinely feel proud of what I do, but I know I feel proud of what I do. And that's all the difference. I'm not waiting for someone else's permission to feel proud of myself. You have to give that permission. What I've learned is that no one is going to ever give you permission to go do what you want to do, to go be with that person, to go do the job you love, to come out as to your parents that you're actually, you actually like girls or boys. No one is going to give you that permission. You have to give yourself that permission. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to step up for yourself. You have to be willing to lead with love, because you know that if you do this, it will set you free. Another reason I really, really am a huge proponent of vulnerability, because vulnerability gives you the freedom to live your life how you want to live it. Hope that answers your question. Emily asks, do you think there is such a thing as oversharing? If so, where is the boundary between sharing in your personal life struggles and oversharing? Great question, Emily. The thing I like to always tell myself is oversharing to me is, let me word this. Am I jeopardizing someone else by what I'm saying or what I'm sharing? For example, my Awakened Child series that I recently started, the reason I even started that series is because I want to shed light onto the parent-child relationship. I've had a very, I would say, dysfunctional, very expansive. The reason I say expansive is it was my call to expansion. Very hard relationship with my parents, and I've had a very hard upbringing. And for me, the reason I haven't shared a lot on relationships is, there's nothing on relationships on my website, and I haven't shared who I love, who I'm with, who my partner is, who the man I want to be with, is because I've been afraid of what people will think, and I've been afraid to be vulnerable because I'm afraid of reactions from other people. And I'm being honest right now by sharing with you that I am vulnerable too. I'm going through the same things. But when I know what I share can be of service to someone, that's how I know I'm not oversharing. If it can be of service to someone and someone can benefit from what I'm sharing with them, then I'm going to do it. Because my whole intention, motive for anything that I do is to be the highest service I can be, to let my life be the expression of love. And that's how I decide if I'm oversharing or not. Hope that makes sense. And I will continue to, over the course of the next couple months, you'll probably continue to get a little bit more insight into my life and why I do what I do and where all of this stems from as I get more comfortable with being vulnerable. And it's a process, it's a process. I took it step by step. I started with my career choice, then I moved on to how I wanted to portray myself in the world and how I wanted to share my message. Then I moved on to The lifestyle choices, me being a vegan, that was a vulnerable choice because I wasn't approved of. I wasn't, but it was just like step by step. So like take it into phases. If you're going to choose to be vulnerable, take it in phases. Don't go vulnerable all at once, do one thing and then do the other thing. If that makes sense. Van asks, hi Kajal, you're amazing. Thank you, so are you. Can you share tips on how to overcome fear and anxiety? I have so many resources on that on my website, but to sum it up in a nutshell, understand that fear is an illusion, okay? I talked earlier on this call about ego, the false conditioned self. Fear is the language of the ego, the false conditioned self. Ego is what forms when we're in the human experience. We're in a human body, okay? Ego, false conditioned self, right? And language is fear. Higher self is the oneness with everything, the universe, the stars, the galaxies, the chipmunk across the street, there's a cat sitting right there. Is the language of that is love. So how can you overcome fear is by understanding, first of all, that, what's your question right there? Understand that you can never really overcome fear. Fear will always be there. As long as you are alive, there will be fear, because fear has a purpose. It's the reason you know to run away from a lion. It's the reason you don't put your hand on a hot stove when it's boiling water. Fear has a purpose. So don't make your fear wrong. Just know that it has a purpose. Thank you so much. Because of you, I look left and right when I cross the street. Because of you, I know to run from a lion. Because of you, I know not to touch a hot candle. Like, congratulate it, give it a purpose, celebrate it, and then realize that it's never going to go away. It's always going to be there because it's there to serve you in some capacity. It's not there to run the show. It's there to just help you stay alive, basically. That's what it's really there to help you do. And when you kind of give it a job and you say, this is what you do, and you assign it a role, and then you say, this is your boundaries, do not cross these boundaries, this is how you will speak to me, this is how you won't speak to me, just like you would do with any real person. Personify that fear. Look at it deep into its being and its realness that you think it is, but it's really not real. And you understand that it's just watching out for you. It just wants to have your back. But you just need to kind of put it in its place and be like, hey, thank you, but there is no real threat and danger here. Where there is fear, there is the way. I like to remind myself there. When there is no impediment, danger, and I'm having fear about if I should go and post this blog post or do this live call I'm doing, I just know that if this fear is only showing me what I need to do, it's telling me that, hey, this is you choosing to expand, and I don't think you should expand because fear is all about playing safe. And whenever you want to expand and grow, there's going to be fear. But if you go beyond the fear, as in choose to take that jump over the hurdle of fear, you'll realize, holy cow, oh my God, I feel so good right now. I feel expansive. I feel amazing. So don't think of it as something you have to condemn, but think of something that's showing you where you need to go. Change the dialogue, change the relationship. Where there is fear, there is the way. And same thing with anxiety. The reason when we have anxiety is because we're too identified with our thoughts. Anxiety is all about living in the past or in the future, but not living in the now. When you feel anxious, what thought are you clinging onto? Why are you clinging onto this thought? And ask yourself, breathe in. Whenever you're anxious, I like to kind of ground my energy, and that's kind of like hold on to something or put my hand in my heart, and I just kind of say, breathe in, and I just say, it's safe for me to be here now. Okay? Do that for anxiety. It's going to help you ground your energy into the now, because when you're in the now, you can't be anxious. Hope that helps. Okay. Let's see. If you have any more questions, I'm going to take probably 10 more minutes of questions. So go ahead and put them in now. Now's a good time to ask me, how can I stop or control thoughts? First, understand that thoughts occur. You can't stop thought. Thoughts just occur. Thoughts are there. If you can start understanding that if you're in a human body, you have a brain, and the brain's job is to think. That's what it's there to do. It's going to think. Thoughts just are going to happen. It's like you can't turn the sun off. The sun's just going to always be there. Just like that, you can't turn your thoughts off. So start understanding that you are the space in which thoughts occur. You are not the thoughts that occur to you. You are just the space in which the thoughts occur. So when you understand that thoughts will just come, a thought about a tree sitting right there, a cup right here, a thought about, oh my gosh, am I sounding okay as I talk like this? Those thoughts will occur. But what you have to do is you have to build awareness. Awareness as in try understanding how your thoughts are making you feel. That's how you can control your thoughts, is when you start understanding how what you're thinking is making you feel. So when I think of the thought, I'm so unworthy, oh God, I can never be good enough, I'll never succeed, I'll never do that. Those are just thoughts, right? That thought is right now creating an emotion in your body, because thoughts create emotion, which then it creates the experience you have. So it's creating an emotion. It's usually like heavy, it's like a tight knot on your chest right here, right? So understand that that thought, my identification with that thought is the reason I'm feeling that thought in my body, and therefore experiencing it in the world, in my reality. And when you build awareness on what you're thinking, and you kind of try on those thoughts like you would try on a shirt, like the shirt I'm wearing, I wore the shirt because it makes me feel good. Just like this thought, just like if it was a thought, I'm wearing this thought because it makes me feel good enough. I can wear another shirt because I don't like the way the shirt makes me feel. Just like that, do that with your thoughts. Try on thoughts. Try on the thought, I'm worthy. How does that feel? Feels good, right? Keep it on. Try on the thought that I'm a sore loser. Does it make you feel good? Take that thought off. Just like that, when you build awareness on how your thoughts are making you feel, you can control what thoughts you think, what thoughts you invite into your space. I always like to say that the thoughts you invite into your space are the thoughts you're going to experience in your body, which are then going to create the experience you have outside. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I'm just going to take a few more questions. Go ahead and put your questions to the right. I will look out for them as they come in. Let's see if I forgot anything. I briefly touched on shame a little bit. Being vulnerable is also considered shame, like putting yourself out there, being seen and being heard, exposing the real you, sharing your truth. There's often shame around that, because if we're taught, which is so weird, it's counterintuitive what we're taught in society. Taught that if you are your real self, people won't like you. You should be ashamed of who you are. I don't know why it's so ingrained in our cultural conditioning to be ashamed of who you are. So if you're ashamed of who you are, the last person you want to be is not yourself. There's a lot of shame around that, and shame is the #1 reason we don't want to be vulnerable, because we're afraid to expose who we are. Shame is emotional exposure. Being vulnerable is emotionally exposing yourself, because if we just share the reality of our emotional landscape, people are going to think that's weird, that's fucked up, or that's not right. But the thing is, though, you realize that when you do that, more and more and more people are exactly going through what you're going through. It's like another thing is that when I was 16 years old, I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was in a really low place with myself, and I couldn't find anyone that was going through what I went through. So what I told myself later in life at like 18 and 21 was that I'm going to be that someone for someone I wish I had. And that's kind of gave me the courage to do what I do. And now I know that just because I share my trials and tribulations and challenges with anyone on the internet to view, that someone out there has hope, that someone like me exists that can relate to what they're going through. You become that, I guess, that light for that person to help them understand their own light. That's why vulnerability is so powerful. And I always like to associate the word power. It's the people who are willing to be powerful, as in true inner power, are the people who are willing to be vulnerable. Because when you're not in your power, you're so affected by everything around you, what people say, what people's expectations are, what people think, etc. I hope that makes sense. If there's any last questions for me, go ahead and put them in the box right now. I'm going to start wrapping it up. I think it's time to tell you that I am accepting new coaching clients. So if you've been following my work, watching my videos secretly, reading my newsletter, whatever, I invite you to come work with me. If you sign up between now and July 1st, by the end of the day tomorrow, basically at midnight, I will offer you 20% discount on any of my coaching, which is 90 minutes, 6 weeks, or 3 months. So it expires on June 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You've been wanting to work with me? Shoot me an email after this call is over. You can just go over to my website, kajal@kajalpande.com, and shoot me an email through the contact page saying that you watched this video and you want to work with me and that you want to take the opportunity of receiving a 20% off discount to work with me. That offer is available. I really hope that you will choose to make the investment in yourself, to do the inner work, to transcend your life, to transform your life, to live from a place of truth, authentic truth. Yay! So if you don't have any questions, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for being here. I really hope this was of high service to you. It's helped you in some way. And if it did, and you wanna just pop me an email at kajal@kajalpande.com and just tell me what you thought, how it helped you. Just say hi, words of appreciation, whatever. I love to hear from you. And again, if you want to work with me, I'm offering a 20% off discount on all my coaching packages until tomorrow, June 30th at midnight. Email me and tell me you want to work with me at kajal@kajalpande.com. KAJL@KAJALPANDEY.com. All right. Till next time, I'm going to do another one of these next month in July. I'll probably send out a poll through my Facebook page on what the topic will be. So if there's a topic you want me to talk about, have a suggestion for, participate in the poll, and I'll see you in July for July's Soul Talk Workshop. All my love, wherever you're in the world, have a blissful, beautiful day. Bye. Sat Nam.